Welcome back, guys, to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinists by a machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson from Proteum Machining, and this week I'm joined by Jacob Ellul-Blake from Pantechnicon Design. So, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I've been listening since episode number one, and hopefully I won't disappoint your audience. And there have been a lot of luminaries from and very influential people in my own journey that have been guests previously. The Renzettis and the Grimsmos and Jay Pearson, and I mean, like the level of conversations and guests that you've been able to have so far have just been spectacular. So I'm excited to talk to you, and hopefully we can add a little bit as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody in my audience, if all I have to do is take a look at your website, and you are definitely part of those people. Like your guys' design is hands down gorgeous. So I guess let's start first off. What is Pantechnicon Design? What do you guys do for anybody who doesn't follow you? Where can they find you online? And then we'll dive into your manufacturing journey.
Yeah. So I started the company a little over 7 years ago, and what we do is we make tools and accessories for coffee enthusiasts primarily. So if you go to our website, which is pantechnicondesign.com, what you'll see is sets of accessories for customizing espresso machines primarily. So a lot of people, it's similar to like a custom car sort of scenario where the enthusiasts who are really into coffee and really into espresso will improve or both the performance or the aesthetics of their machine. It's a thing that takes up a big percentage of the real estate in your kitchen, and it's an expensive appliance, and so it's part of like everyone's morning coffee ritual, which is has a big importance in how you start your day. So it's a thing that people are super passionate about, and we've kind of identified early on a need to, and I had my own personal desire to improve what was existing and make things more beautiful. And I have just a maker at heart, and have enjoyed making things for a long, long time. So it just kind of started as a hobby and as an interest, and then grew from there.
Okay, so you started loving espresso and having a nice espresso machine and wanting to improve it.
Well, so if you want to go all the way back, I started working in the coffee industry in, let's see, around the early 2000s, like 2003-ish. I was playing music at the time, and as a professional musician before my work in manufacturing. And so I just got a day job as working at a local coffee roaster in Seattle. And got interested. I've always been interested in machines and how things work and equipment and stuff. So I started getting interested in the coffee roasting equipment and the brewing equipment. And early on, there's this guy in Netherlands named Kees van der Westen, who is essentially like he's an artist and a sculptor, and has made like for decades has made these crazy sort of one-off bespoke sculptural espresso machine art pieces, and now he has a full factory with a full production line of different machine models. But I saw what he had done, and I was just like, my mind was blown. And I always kind of hoped in the back of my mind, like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool someday to be able to make really, really cool machines and do some kind of out of the box stuff. And so eventually, through a progression of different jobs, then I was able started to develop connections with who would be my people who would be my future customers, and then had the opportunity to start a company when the time was right. And so yeah, that's kind of a little bit of the backstory on that. And I had also worked in manufacturing previously to having my own company. I first worked at a espresso machine manufacturing company called La Marzocco. So I was doing some R&D and assembling prototypes and stuff. And that was really like where I learned the nuts and the bolts of how espresso machines work, and kind of the behind the scenes manufacturing processes. And
Okay.
then, yeah, so I really, but way before I started the company, I already knew the intimate details of espresso machines. So, which was super helpful because they're hot and there's steam and there's water, and they're, they get wet. And so there's a lot of constraints when you really have to be aware of how these things are being used, especially in a commercial setting. So we have commercial food service customers, and so you really got to be aware of like how these things are getting used so that they can perform out in the field in use, and so that you don't have to worry about things breaking. Or because like if your business is serving coffee and you buy a beautiful thing and it breaks, it doesn't really matter how beautiful it is. If it keeps you from serving coffee and running your business, then it's a real problem. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's
so,
like,
yeah,
us buying CNC machines and having them break or something like that. Like
yeah,
you gotta be able to make your money somehow. So, and yeah,
yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
looking at your website, you've got the whole how to customize an espresso machine tab and things like, not painting or powder coating your drip tray or steam wands. Like when I like sit down and actually think about it, that makes sense. But, that's definitely not something that would have come to mind, right off the bat. So,
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of sort of niche details about that are like really application specific that I learned through my work with the manufacturing companies that I wouldn't have gotten any other way. Like um, in particular, there's all kinds of weird stuff. Like you think of like silicone tubing as being like sort of pretty impervious to um, different chemicals and stuff, and it's used in food and cooking, and so you think like, okay, great, silicone probably going to be great for coffee too, except that the oils in the coffee attack the silicone, and it can be like um, they can start to seep through and like cause it to sort of decompose and degrade and fall apart. And so just like weird stuff like that. Same with powder coat, like the coffee oils attack the whatever plastic and binders and stuff they use in the powder coat, and cause it to just like get all bubbly and weird and fail. So there's a lot of a lot of things you learn along the way.
yeah, seriously. So let's step back. So you said first you started with La Marzocco. So was that your first manufacturing job, or how
That
did
was
you
my
get into
first.
manufacturing?
Yeah, that was my first manufacturing job. I just got hired to help one of the engineers assemble some prototypes for a new machine model that they were launching. And so it was an amazing experience. It was just like literally building stuff from scratch, like making all the wiring harnesses and making the tubes and like brazing the ferrules on all the ends of the copper tubes and bending all the tubes, and then making some manifolds and stuff on a Bridgeport, an old Bridgeport they had there. Like I had at that point, I think I had a Grizzly benchtop. Um, I don't remember which Grizzly benchtop mill it was, but it doesn't really matter. You get the idea. So my machining experience at that time was like Grizzly benchtop mill, and I don't even know if I had the first lathe that I got was a 1930s. I forget what it even was, but it was like a flat belt, Babbitt bearing. It was just like it barely worked, but it was like enough to make me realize that give me the tools to start learning stuff and start learning how to thread stuff with manual in feed, and no indicators or anything. It's just like just making stuff.
Right.
Uh,
So after there, where did you go next?
so after that, I left to go work for a friend of mine that was starting a motorcycle aftermarket parts company called Alt-Rider. And so they specialize, they're still around making lots of parts, and they specialize in the adventure touring bikes. So like the R1200s and the BMW adventure bikes that people ride to Alaska or ride to Argentina or whatever on big, long, kind of like off-road style trips. So we were making crash bars, skid plates, luggage racks, all that kind of stuff, and working with Seattle area manufacturers to make most of that. So I was doing the product engineering on all that stuff. So lots of like 3D tube weldment designs and folded sheet metal stuff, and not too much on the machined components for what we were doing at that time, but lots of sheet metal and tube for sure.
Okay. So did you go to school for this before you were a professional musician, or did you just kind of
No, no, I
learn
just
it as you went?
I,
Or
I just learned it as I went. Like a
wow.
lot of people in the community, there's a lot of self-taught folks that just kind of learn what they're interested in as they go, and I definitely am count myself among them. And I just kind of like first taught myself like the CAD side of things. Started with SolidWorks a long time ago, and then I use Fusion now, but just gradually added skills as I needed them. So yeah, never went to engineering school or trade school or any of that. Although it's what I should have been doing, quite honestly. I would have had way more fun. But actually, studying music is a really good way to teach yourself how to be like super disciplined and super like give yourself a really good work ethic, and just like learning how to fail and try again and fail and try again and fail and try again is like pretty much what it's all about. So which serves you well if you're trying to make parts and have all kinds of weird problems cropping up.
Yeah, totally. So where did you go after then? After Altrider?
So after that, I worked at actually one of my suppliers was hiring a design engineer. So it's a company called Sportworks, and they make all of the bike racks that go on the front of the metro buses. You probably have them in your area where there's a folds down bike rack on the front of the city bus where it has a little arm that like you fold the rack down, and then there's a little tray where you lift your bike up in there, and then sort of a spring loaded arm that grips onto the front wheel.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely have those on our buses.
Yeah. So so I was doing essentially manufacturing engineering there. So we there's they had a few robotic welders and a few. They actually built their own robot bead blast cell with a FANUC robot, kind of like it's sort of like a shipping container size thing because those racks are pretty big, and so they hung a FANUC robot upside down from the roof of this thing, and then would program the bead blast for those bike racks all through the teach pendant. It was just like a nightmarish programming job to try to get like uniform surface finishes on those like irregular, curvy, bent 3D stainless steel racks, and try to like get all the surface finish all blended. But um, But yeah, they were doing a lot of really cool stuff. That company actually started out making like way back in the day, early days mountain biking and early days skiing. They sort of figured out how to do the um, like the butted tubing for mountain bike handlebars and like variable thickness tubing where they'd have like mandrel benders that could deal with these 3D bent shapes with this tubing that people weren't really used to. It was like a new material, and they kind of figured out how to deal with it on the 3D tube bending side.
Wow.
Yeah, super interesting spot with and really great people, and it turned out to be super influential for me too because that's kind of where I learned about lean manufacturing for the first time, and they had done their whole production team had done a lean training up at a place in Washington called Cause Tailored that does a bunch of aerospace interiors, and they've been doing lean and sharing lean instruction with local, let's say like the regional companies that were interested in it. They kind of like set up a thing where you could, bring a team from your company and come see their place, and then they would do like a reciprocal visit and come see what you were doing, and a really cool thing. Um, so, anyways, that's kind of like how I first heard about lean manufacturing being a thing. But previously, I didn't know anything about it, and got to design a bunch of weld fixtures and um, forming fixtures and tube bending fixtures and stuff. And so that was primarily what I did there was tooling design and go out onto the shop floor and like you have a concept, you think you know how it's going to work, then you go sit with the welders and you're like, oh crap, like how did I miss that your TIG torch isn't going to be able to like fit in this one spot where you got to finish the weld on the thing. So it was a really good learning experience about like how to concept a tooling design and then go sit with the people who are actually doing the process and try to understand like how to make it better and see what all the the necessary stuff is that you need to think about when you're actually doing the tooling design process so that you can make good parts and make it easy for somebody to do their job and be successful and get the parts through inspection and all that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And being able to learn lean, not on your own dime, I think is something that
Yeah.
a lot of us don't get to do. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, and pretty much everything that I say in this whole podcast is just basically my own experience, and I might be totally wrong, and hopefully it's useful to somebody, but I'm by no means an expert in any of this.
No, well, and like I've always kind of seen lean similar to like meditation, where like nobody's an expert, but just knowing that it's there and like continually reminding yourself that it's an option is kind of the point of it is like, oh, maybe this isn't the most lean thing to do. Like,
Yeah,
I think
totally.
as humans we're not really programmed to be lean in general, and so like it's definitely a continual process for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Um,
after that,
yeah.
after there, where did you go next?
Yeah. So after, so I worked at Sportworks for a little while, um, and while I was there, I had some old customers from the coffee industry that called me up and were like, "Hey, we want to do this. We're building this store in Manhattan. We want to do this crazy machine. Are you in?" I was like, "Yeah, heck yeah, let's do something." And so basically, I just kind of like moonlighted for a few projects. I was still working my day job, and then I just go home and do design and design all the sheet metal for these couple projects. The customer is called Stumptown Coffee, which is now they're a nationwide uh, chain. They have a couple stores in New York and LA and They're based in Portland. But anyway, so I was kind of moonlighting and did these couple projects for him, but it was a lot of work. And you get home from your day job and then you work until like how it is. Like you go back to the shop for another 4 hours or something, and that's fine for a while, but definitely not totally sustainable. And so at the time, I wasn't married and didn't have any kids or anything. So and it was always something that I wanted to do. So I figured it was the right time to start the business. And yeah, so that was 7 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. We've made a whole bunch of machines and made a whole bunch of parts, and I feel like we're just now kind of like getting going. So excited to see what comes next too.
Yeah. So before we kind of dive into your business, where does the name come from?
So Pantechnicon means the house of all the arts and crafts. So when kind of from the early days when I started making stuff, like I'd always been interested in making furniture and learning different ways of making things. And so even before I had like an actual manufacturing job, I was messing around with making furniture and messing around with metal casting and machining. And then like in 2007 or something, I built a CNC router that we actually still use to this day, which is just like crazy to think about. It's like uh, the travel's like basically like 36 by 48, so it'll take like a half sheet of plywood or
Oh
half
wow.
sheet of half sheet of material. So it's pretty big. And I like welded up the whole base frame for it. But it's like a two by two tube steel frame with like THK linear actuators for the Y, and then I built a big gantry out of 80/20 and rails and a ball screw for the X.
And you said this was 2007?
Yes, it was like super early days well, maybe not super early, but for me it was super early days in the forums and YouTube. There wasn't nearly as much resources and parts as now as there back then as there is now. Um, but anyway, it was a really fun project, and it like got me interested in CNC machines and programming and
Well,
I was
that's
like,
pretty amazing that you've made something that has lasted 13 years too. Like,
yeah, I would like honestly, it probably would have been like much better if I had just thrown it away like 5 years ago than bought something else. But anyway, it's fine for what we're using it for, and it's like I said, it's still making parts, so it's like uh, there's nothing terribly wrong with it, but uh, it's funny that it's lived had such a long life, way longer than I ever would have guessed, and made more parts than I ever would have guessed.
so back to the beginning of Pantechnicon. So you started it, but so were you doing pieces and parts like you do now? Because you do parts for espresso machines in addition to full custom builds. So did you start out with just the custom builds, or start out with just the parts, or was it kind of everything at once, or how did that start?
We started out with just the custom builds actually, and this is maybe like a one example of like lots of times when people start businesses, it's not really like they think that it's going to be one thing, and then they quickly figure out that it needs to be something else, and they have to pivot and go kind of a different direction. And that's kind of what we found with the custom builds. So we started out doing custom builds and doing like a one-off or a two-off thing, but it's pretty expensive, and it's very difficult to scale, and there's a lot of labor, and the parts are really big. Like from making stuff, like the difficulty of achieving a really good surface finish is directly related to the size of the part, right? So like if you got to have like a perfect surface finish and your part is 2 inches by 2 inches, okay, great. But what if it's like 3 feet long by by 2 feet wide? Like it just the complexity of achieving good results just goes up and up with the size and the number of parts that you have. So I guess all that to say that it becomes the size of the parts can make it difficult to scale if you have a bunch of processes that where it's hard to get good results repeatably, like powder coat, like metal finishing, like plating. Like all those places are just a nightmare to take your part. So if you spend thousands of dollars making stuff and then you take them to the plater and they screw it up, then you know how it goes. It it's very difficult, and it's also important to note that at the beginning it was just me, and so as a solopreneur, um, you're very constrained by just the number of hours in the day. Um, so I actually should have looked up when we started doing the production parts, but let's say um, a couple of years into the business, we started doing production parts for La Marzocco, the U.S. distributor. So essentially, it's um, like an accessory that's offered at the time of the equipment sale.
Oh, that's great.
So,
Wow.
yeah, which is amazing, and so they are by far our biggest customer currently, and we also have retail customers that go to our website and find stuff, and lots of international customers as well. Um, but the bulk of our um, production numbers are for La Marzocco in the U.S.
So with your custom ones, do you guys work with La Marzocco? Like, how much of it do you just buy one off the shelf from them and then fully customize everything, or how much is factory supported, I guess, in your customization process?
It's we have a really good relationship with them and have for a long time, and we're very fortunate to have that. And so we're also a dealer, a wholesale dealer for them. So we essentially, if somebody buys a machine from us, we can buy the um, buy the machine from the distributor, do the customization, and then send it to the customer, and the warranty and everything is still remains intact, and it's kind of a seamless process as far as the customer is concerned, because basically all the internal parts of the machine aren't changed dramatically, so they can still get parts and service and stuff.
That's great. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean, it I'm looking through your Instagram as we speak, and like some of these are so gorgeous. Like I love all the wooden black metal ones, and you just finished the one with Neil from Discommon, which I was just looking at the renders for that.
yeah, that
Um,
was a crazy project. Yeah,
yeah,
I had
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, that thing. I'm excited to be able to share some more pictures of that coming up here shortly. There's basically so the body of that thing is all let's say like the two sides and the customer facing back side of it is all billet, and it's all 6061 anodized black, and some of the big pieces were too big for us to fit in our machine, but all the little pieces, there's like these little like long spindly cup rails that like where no two sides are parallel. Like everything is like a twisting sort of like a twisting surface on there, and so it was just a ton of um, like super creative setups and programming to figure out how to make all that stuff. It was definitely a big challenge, and I think the result is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can really see. their design language through it too, which is really cool. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the desk they did a few years ago.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and it's
Yeah,
yeah, that's amazing. It really is quite cool.
yeah. And what they sent me for that was just a, a dumb solid. So basically, it like didn't have any components. It was just like like the form was there, but it wasn't split into components, and it wasn't fit exactly to the espresso machine. So like it was just like it was an espresso machine body ish, and and so it was a really cool process to be able to take what they had and then split it up into components and keep it as true to the design intent as possible, and then figure out how to make all this stuff and actually do it. It was super cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned setups and stuff. What kind of machinery do you guys currently have?
So we have a Speedio S500, and that we've had for 2 years, about, and we have two Tormach Slant Pro lathes, and we have a laser and just like a CO2 engraving laser, and a bunch of woodshop, standard woodshop type stuff, bandsaw, belt sanders, that kind of a thing. And then the tried and true 2007 custom built CNC router.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, and actually, that gets into one of our listener questions from White Weasel. He said he didn't know what CNC machines you use, but how do you guys keep, or how do you manage, between metal and wood chips and dustiness of wood stuff and the cleanliness of machining? How do you guys manage that in your shop?
We have lots of dust collection, and we've um, made quite a few custom dust collection solutions. Let's say it's a thing that's super important if you're working with powdery materials or wood, especially inside CNC machines. You got to figure out how to do the dust control, and so we've basically had to design and build um, a solution for all of our machines. And I think there's an aspect of that question too about changing, switching back and forth. And so really the thing is, like, the machines don't care that much about if there's dust in there, but what's really the main issue is if there's water, or like if there's parts of them inside the machine that stay wet with coolant, then there's in a lot of woods there's tannic acid, which is like the sort of like brown stuff, that the brown color of the wood,
Mhm.
and the tannic acid reacts with steel and will rust. So basically, like, the the thing that you really got to figure out is if you're switching back between wood and metal, because you really got to figure out how to get the water or coolant out of all the little nooks and crannies, like up inside your tool holders. So like like up above the collet, kind of in the gap between the top of the tool hole, like let's say like below the pull stud but above the collet, like in there, that doesn't dry out very well. And there's really no way to dry it out except to like take all your tool holders apart. Um, so, so really, that's the main challenge, besides
Okay.
the dust control.
So how much are you moving things, in the Speedio, or I guess in the Slant Pros? Like, are you mixing materials quite often, or do you kind of try to dedicate, one Slant Pro for wood and one for metal? Like, what's your workflow on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we do. the Slant Pros. One is wet metal and one is wood. And the Speedio, we have to go back and forth because we only have one and we only have room for one. Someday we'll get more space so we can have another machine. But for the moment, we got to switch back and forth. And so we try to kind of like schedule our production such that we can do a bunch of metal and then switch over and then do a bunch of wood and then just kind of go back and forth. And it's honestly, it doesn't work that badly to do it that way. It's not so awful.
That's good. Yeah. So do you plan on whenever you machine wood in the Speedio, just taking everything apart? Is that part of your scheduling, I guess?
Yeah. Pretty much we try to, we have enough tool holders so that like the metal cutting tool holders we can actually pull out of the machine and load in the wood cutting tool holders and just kind of like swap them back and forth.
Oh,
So
nice. Okay. That makes
yeah,
total sense.
it's not so bad. But you really got to like stay on top of the maintenance and like make sure your spindle taper is staying clean, and because like the dust will like go up inside by the drawbar and the little gripper balls that grab onto the pull stud and everything.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like it could be rough.
yeah. It's not definitely not for the faint of heart. It's nerve wracking enough to buy a expensive CNC machine, but if you don't actually like if you have an application and you don't actually know if the thing that you're going to use it for is going to like destroy the machine, it just like adds another level of concern and nervousness to the whole process. So
Yeah, definitely. So that actually backing up to you were talking about the transition from making only custom machines to making your own products too. Fort Manufacturing asked, how did you determine there was a market for your products, and then how do you decide what product to focus on next? So, are you getting customer requests to, find what you're going to start making next, or is it things that you want, as a coffee consumer? What makes you decide to venture into a new product?
yeah, I think to sort of generalize the answer a little bit, I think that that the best products are made in response to someone's own need or noticing an improvement that can be made in something that you use yourself, because that's kind of like the way that you get the best insight is if you are actually the user of the product that you're trying to design. So so that was part of the reason that I designed a lot of this stuff, is because I was as a user of these machines, I was intimately aware of what could be done and what would be nice to do. And so I was sort of scratching my own itch in that way. And then in addition, we had, you know, the distributor approach us and wanted to do some product lines because they saw an opportunity for their customers to add accessories to these machines. And there wasn't really an established market for a lot of this stuff when we first started either. And so it's a good question, because if there's no market for the thing that you're making, it could be that it's just because nobody has bothered to do it before, or it could be that that it's not a thing that people really care about doing. And so it's like somehow you got to figure out what the situation is, and there's a bunch of ways you can kind of learn more about that. You can send samples to people and see if they like it, or you can do some market research, or you can there's all kinds of like crazy keyword research tools that are available these days. You can find out what people are searching for on Google searches.
Yeah.
But anyways, you got to kind of figure out how heavy is it? How heavy of a lift is it going to be to create the customer base if it doesn't already exist? If it's already a thing that people buy, and you can improve on what's already existing, or like bring something new to the offering, or like put your own spin or take on a thing, then that's obviously a different story, and that's great to have that already established, because building a thing, a customer base from scratch, that where people don't might not already know that it's even a thing that you could do is definitely challenging.
Yeah. So what tipped you guys off? Because you were already doing these custom machines. Were you getting requests from current customers, or did you, like you said, send out samples, do some market research? What was your tipping point, I guess, into realizing that this was going to be a big part of your business, or was it your distributorship with La Marzocco?
Yeah, it was really the partnership that we had with La Marzocco that enabled us um, to launch that in a bigger way, because really, like at the beginning, without some orders to build volume, like it's pretty hard um, to drive the business with enough volume to get it going. So somehow you have to get yourself the initial orders to start the momentum and like start the wheel churning. Um, and depending on what industry you're in, you could go about that in different ways. Um, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question really, but we
Oh,
were
it totally does. Yeah.
yeah, we were fortunate that we like had some partnerships where they could help start driving the sales by using their own marketing resources and their own sales resources.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then Fort also asked, do you have any crazy customer or vendor stories? I guess any crazy customizations you've been asked to make that you can share or anything like that?
There's a crazy one that we did in Australia, um, where it's like this. It's also a very like sort of like sculptural, bespoke, all brass plated aluminum machine, and on the top of the machine, there are these analog dials that are the brew timers for the machine. So it's like a kind of like a clock in a rally car kind of situation, where like if you turn on the brew water, the clock will start on each brew head, and there's actually like one face of the dial facing the operator and one face facing the customer, and all of the dials were all repurposed, like aircraft and industrial gate like panel meters, like like an amp meter or a volt meter that you see like on a big instrument control panel, and like a power station or something. I'm sure you've seen the kind of thing where there's like just like a whole wall full, or like an aircraft instrument control panel where there's a whole dashboard full of dials.
Yeah,
So
totally.
we took a bunch of antique dials, and then created a, let's see, that thing was an Arduino based thing to interface with the machine, so that all these things were controlled and integrated into the existing machine wiring, and so that it could just be like connected with USB essentially. Um, anyway, that was pretty nuts. That took a way longer than it should have, and it was not not a revenue earner, but a fun project.
Oh yeah, I just found the video and pictures of it on your Instagram. That is super cool.
Yeah, it was super fun. It's really hard to grow a business doing projects like that, because they just take forever, and there's like no scale or um, repeat business in doing stuff like that. And it's stuff that I really enjoy doing, but man, it will destroy your business in a hurry if you let it take too many resources.
Well, and I can't imagine keeping all of that brass, mirror
Oh,
polished for
yeah,
that. Like it makes me nervous just watching it. Um,
yeah,
so that's a quite the undertaking for sure.
yeah.
So T5 Manufacturing had asked, do you have a coffee bar in your shop?
We do. We have a La Marzocco Linea Mini in there, and we also have just a drip coffee brewer. Um, that's a Bonavita drip coffee brewer that the guys like, and I like too. Uh, and yeah, we don't have like a giant coffee bar. It's just like a little tiny spot. We're very space constrained, so everything has to be kind of like shoehorned into a little tiny nook or cranny.
Hmm. So you mentioned that a few times. How big is your shop? I mean, how many square feet are you guys pushed into?
The shop is at my house, so we
Oh,
have
geez.
yeah, so we have basically like a one-car garage where the lathes and the mill are, and then a basement level in the one-car garage, which is where the wood shop is. So that's maybe like I want to say like 20, but so it might be 300 square feet on each level. So that's like 600 combined. And then there's a whole other sort of like daylight basement level that's maybe another 800 or so. So it's like 1,200 square feet or so if you add it all together, but it's split up between three different rooms, kind of.
Wow. And so how many of there are you now at Pantechnicon?
There's four of us, so there's myself plus three others of our team, and soon to be more. Probably hire another maker type person pretty shortly, and I'd love to be able to hire like a marketing media creator, maybe sales type person sometime this year as well.
Okay. So one more question from T5, and then I want to jump back to that because when I first reached out to you, you felt that hiring an employee and all of that stuff was something that you really wanted to talk about, and I definitely want to talk about it too because I don't think that we've really kind of gone down that route because I'm not really there. Peyton wasn't really there either. Um, yeah. First off, T5 asks, "What's your favorite material to work with?"
I really like I like a lot of materials. I really like walnut, um, and I really like brass and stainless steel. And what I really like most of all, I think, is combining them in interesting and different ways. And I think you'll probably see that in a lot of the products that we design and make is that there's combinations of different materials that you don't usually see together or that are put together in such a way that they um, sort of like a clean design and a clean aesthetic that
Yeah,
kind of highlights
definitely.
aspects of both materials.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at the tamps you made for Chew Innovations, and they're copper and
Oh
red
yeah,
oak, and like that. You guys do an amazing job with mixed material work.
that's very
Uh,
difficult. Thank you.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I've done woodworking. My dad, was a woodworker, not by trade, but back in the day. And so I've done a lot of woodworking. I've now done a lot of machining. I know how drastically different they can be. And so combining them with seamless lines is no easy feat.
Yeah, that is for
Uh,
sure.
and then his last question was, what are your favorite coffee beans and best way to make a cappuccino?
Favorite coffee? There's a lot of really good coffee out there these days. There's a local roaster in Seattle called Seven, as in like the number seven. I think their website is sevenroasters.com, sevencoffeeroasters.com. And there's lots of people that are doing subscription services where there's like a variety of coffee available. There's a retailer that does a really good job called Seattle Coffee Gear that offers a number of coffees from different roasters and a great selection. So I guess if you're looking for good coffee, um, check out your local area and see what the local coffee roasters are doing. And obviously, like if you can support somebody that's local, that's better. Um, and if you need something just to uh, get you going and somewhere to start, go to La Marzocco Home has a subscription service, or Seattle Coffee Gear has a bunch of stuff, and you can at least have a spot to start, and then you can go explore from there.
Cool. Very cool. All right, well, let's jump into employees. When did you first hire your first one? Let's kind of go down that story, and then, lessons learned and all of those kind of things.
Yeah. So first employee was probably 2015 or so. Um, and I think probably there's a lot of people who might be solopreneurs or might have a family business type situation. Myself, I don't have any other family members involved in the business directly. So I'm not in that situation, but that's kind of a different. A family business situation is a little bit different. But if it's just you, then one thing that can be useful to kind of ask yourself is like, why would you want to hire an employee, or like ask yourself like what kind of like what your business is for, or and like why you're actually doing your business, um, because essentially like you need to be able to know those things in order to understand um, what you want to accomplish with by hiring the employees. Um, so, uh, like for me, basically, all of our parts that we make are very labor intensive, and so there's a lot of hand finishing and sanding, and in a business, there's just a lot of things to do generally, anyways. And so I quickly found out that like I just didn't. There was just too much to do, and I just didn't have time to do all of the things that needed to be done. And um, and so like in my learning since then, I've come to realize that there's really no way to create leverage in your business without um, without hiring employees and without leveraging uh, the economics. You can either leverage the money, or you can leverage labor, or you can have if you're lucky enough to have like a zero marginal cost of production product, like a software product, where you can just replicate it by replicating the ones and zeros, then you're great. But otherwise, the only way to grow your business is um, by hiring employees. Um, so that's that's what we started doing in 2015, and it's very, very challenging on a number of levels, but it's also a really exciting opportunity, and it's something that has brought a lot of purpose also to the work that I'm doing. And some of the reasons why it's been so critical for us, besides the obvious, just like having more help to do stuff, is that it actually forced me to build an economic model of the business um, that was actually realistic. Because if you are operating your business, and if you don't have to deal with things like payroll taxes, or um, or paying yourself as an entrepreneur or business owner a fair market wage, then you don't really have an accurate economic picture of what your business is doing or what it's capable of or what you should be doing as a business owner to improve the performance of your business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
um, and I often struggled with knowing, like, nobody tells you, like, okay, great, you started a business, but nobody will tell you, like, oh, you like, this is like how to get to the next stage, or this is what you should be doing, or um, you're doing good, you're doing bad. Like, it's all sort of like nebulous metrics. Like, it's very difficult to know if what you're doing is the right thing or the wrong thing, especially if you're in like a sort of like surviving. Like, if it's good if it's like really bad, or it's good if it's really good, because then you know, like, it's either good or it's bad. But if you're so like somewhere in the middle, and you're like getting by, but maybe you're just like barely getting by, it's difficult to know sometimes, like, well, like, how do I get to the next level, because you're just like sort of, you're doing well enough that you don't want to like totally quit and do something else, but you're not like doing as well as you hope. So it can be difficult to navigate those um, situations sometime.
Sure.
um,
So, having said that, who was your first employee, and what qualities made you hire them? Like, what were you hiring them for? Was it just handwork stuff to offload, or was it specifically to complement your skill set?
yeah, so the first hire was a friend of mine who had made musical instruments. So he was working in a production wood shop um, for a local instrument maker. And so I already knew him, which was great. And he already had the skill sets that on the wood, like the fine word work and finishing, um, that were, I knew would, he could totally do the work already, which was great. And I was already friends with him, so I knew, like, personality wise, that we'd be uh, a good match. And and so that worked out well for a while. And basically, like, once you decide to hire somebody, and then what you quickly learn is that you have to, it really, one reason that it was great for me to do, was because it really forces you to step up your game in um, the documentation and process side of your business. Because, like, if there's some things that you're really good at, that you're a specialist at, you might not realize the degree to which it is going to be difficult to pass those things off to someone else. So, like, I'm sure that you have some parts that you make where there's some finesse required, and you know how to finesse them, and it may or may not be uh, difficult to explain to somebody else how to do the same level of finesse. And what I found was that there were some, let's say, process reliability issues in our manufacturing that I could kind of like gloss over if I was doing it myself. Like, that this insert will work, or that insert will work, or if you just do this and then that, you can kind of like make the manufacturing process work. But if you're handing it off to somebody else that doesn't have the same experience with CNC machines, or doesn't have the same experience with whatever, you really have to tighten up your game on the process reliability and documentation side to help them be successful. Um, and so that was a big learning experience for sure, is like trying to understand what things you can do because you know how to do them, and what things you know how to do and that only you can do that way, and really your process isn't repeatable, and so you need to like fix your process before you hand them off to somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. You know, one thing that my day job has given me is that continual reinforcement of that idea. I have people, I have setup guys coming in daily, or people on the floor saying, "Hey, should we be watching this? Should we be doing this?" And like you said, it's something that you innately do, but having to put it in words is something new.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do you guys have prints then for all of your products, and can anybody pick them up more or less in your company?
That's kind of the idea, is that we have a process that is that anybody can run, if assuming some basic level of training on the particular piece of equipment. That we have a binder with all the drawings in it, and the idea is that anybody should be able to go grab the binder and be able, with a minimal amount of training, be able to make whatever parts need to be made. We've had a lot of new equipment in the, let's say, in the last year or so, and new programs, new processes, new ways of doing stuff that have been big improvements, but we haven't totally caught the documentation up with where our current level of production is. So I definitely need to spend some time to go back and catch everything up to the current state. But that's the idea, is to have a process that we can drop anybody into without any special skills necessarily, other than you got to want to learn, and you work hard and pay attention. And if you can do those things, we should be able to train you to be successful making whatever stuff we need to make. And that's kind of the goal.
Totally. So you said you had two other employees besides your first hire. What
Yeah.
did you hire them for, and what do they do?
So we've been, so we've had, let's see, we have 3 employees currently, and the first 2 employees have since moved on. So this isn't like sequential necessarily. So we have the current roles that we have right now are a production manager, who also um, is the operator on the Brother, and one guy who is shipping and doubles in production, wood finishing, sanding, finishing, runs the bandsaw, can run the CNC lathe, and one guy who is like the finishing specialist, um, who just fills in if needed on deliveries or shipping, or some other area, but is mainly production focused. So those are the main roles that we have now, is the production manager slash operator, mill lathe operator, shipping slash production, and production specialist.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How did you, I guess, determine those roles? Were those the roles that you were hiring for, or are these roles that kind of everybody grew into as you found a need?
I would say that it was not. I didn't have some master plan where I then filled the roles. I think that the roles are emerging and evolving as our internal processes evolve, and as our current team grows in skill and capability. So we try to identify what people are interested in and what their strengths are, and then like give them opportunities to excel in those areas. Um, but yeah, it's kind of an evolving thing.
Okay, and then remind me again, what were the roles that you're looking to fill coming up here? You said a maker type.
Yeah, so it's sort of like general production, and a media creator slash marketing slash sales type role. I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but if you like manufacturing and you're listening to this and you want to do some like a role that is somewhat related to any of those things, then you should definitely hit us up.
So, as far as media creation, are you talking about your Instagram, or are you wanting to start a YouTube channel, or do you have one? What kind of media are you guys looking to put out?
We do have a YouTube channel right now. It's mostly just like instructional videos. But yeah, there's a huge potential um, for product related videos. There's a huge potential for like on the product photography side. There's a bunch of work that needs to be done. Um, yeah, so both still imagery and um, video and marketing content production is what we need to do. Basically, we're very manufacturing focused, and we're definitely underspending on marketing right now. And so I'm really trying to focus more of my attention on the sales and marketing side, so I can get some additional resources going on that, whether it's outsourced or an internal hire to do some of that stuff that is not getting done currently.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And social media seems to be the right place to spend that kind of money, um, as far as
Yeah,
advertising goes.
yeah, I think so. A couple other little details on the employee side. I think that there's some other um, ancillary things that come as a consequence of that. Like it might seem sort of like trivial on the from the if you're looking at it from the outside, but it can actually like make a big difference in your business. Um, and the granular detail on that is that if you have employees, then it sort of requires that you have an accounting system that can pay employees in a reasonable way, and so it will like there's lots of people that might not have like a cloud-based accounting system and might be writing invoices by hand or something, which might be fine kind of, except that then there's no reporting that you can do that's possible. And they might think that like, well, like how do you do all the filings and the taxes and everything for hiring employees? um, and so what you need to do is like get moved into an actual accounting platform, and then you can offload all of the tax filings and all of that to a bookkeeper, and they can just like log into um, your accounting platform and do all of that for you, and then you can have more information about what's going on in your business and spend your time doing other things. So it can really be the impetus to spur these other kind of foundational structural changes in your business, um, and free you up to do the things that allows your business to grow and allow you as the business owner or entrepreneur to focus on how to steer the ship, and less on all the like nitty gritty day to day stuff that you can hand off to somebody else.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. One thing that's stuck with me from an early episode we had was from Kelvin. Um, he said, you'll never waste money spending it on an accountant or a lawyer, and that really stuck with me. Is like, oh yeah, I guess that totally makes sense. Like all it's going to do
Sure.
is prevent future headache and heartache. So, yeah, I I definitely encourage anybody who's not in a true bookkeeping software to at least look into it. A lot of them offer free trials too, so you can figure out what you like.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing that is a big piece of it is basically the as soon as you start bringing on employees, then the main pretty much all I'll just say all of the challenges that you face are leadership challenges. So you have to definitely up your game on educating yourself on becoming a better leader, and really focus your attention on how you can improve yourself as a leader, because really at the end of the day, like everything is your fault. And if you like, if somebody doesn't work out, it's your fault because maybe you hired the wrong person, or it's your fault because you didn't understand how to train them properly, or it's your fault because um, you didn't give them the right opportunities, or um, and so on and so forth. So it's like it's great because it can actually give you the some of the tools that can help address maybe like things that have been getting in the way of other parts of your life, help you be a better parent or partner or spouse or whatever, and help you be a better boss. So it's kind of like a win-win for everybody. And but it's challenging for sure. Like the as soon as you add people into the mix, different people people are complicated, and it can definitely present a lot of challenges, but it can also be super rewarding as well.
Totally. So in that vein, do you have any resources you'd recommend as far as books or classes, or what have you done that you felt really helped you become a better leader?
So I just like read everything that I possibly can, listen to podcasts, read books. So there's a bunch of there's just a ton of resources out there. Read all of Jocko's books, listen to all of Jocko's podcasts, then read them all again.
I thought
then
you might have been talking about extreme ownership a little bit there.
Yeah, yeah. There's just a ton of a ton in all of those books. That is, there's a lot to chew on. Um, let's see. Andy Grove has a really good book called High Output Management. That's kind of like one of the classics. Um, but yeah, there's there's just a ton of available materials out there, and so just listen to other people that like the Tim Ferriss podcast has interviews and conversations with leaders of amazing companies from all over the world. And if you just write down all the books that they mention, and you um, go and check out the ones that you think would be most interesting to you, then there's just like an endless amount of knowledge to be had.
Awesome. Yeah, I think like there are so many resources out there, so I definitely agree, and I would definitely recommend extreme ownership, if not just to get you in that mindset of like the whole point of that book for me. Like, yes, it's take extreme ownership, but it's blame is completely useless, and so be
Right.
solutions
Yeah.
focused, not blame focused, and that's
Right,
how you
right.
get stuff done.
Especially, yeah, especially if you are an entrepreneur or business owner, um, then there is no excuse, because everything is literally your fault. Like every last single thing, and you're the only one. You're the only one that can fix it. And if it's not getting fixed, it's just because of your lack of action, or uh,
Yeah.
making the wrong call.
So if you're thinking about getting into business, remember it is always your fault for the rest of your time at that business. So you got to be okay
Yeah,
with handling that.
yeah.
Well, cool. So let's get into shop stuff. What's new in your shop? In the last week or the last month, what's been going on that you're excited about?
So the newest recent thing, the newest recent machine is is the second Tormach lathe. Um, we have a fairly recent software. It's not really anything fancy, but it's exciting to me because it's just like way better than we had before. It's a manufacturing planning spreadsheet that I paid a couple of bucks to somebody to do some custom programming, so that we can basically like enter orders and then have the spreadsheet populate all of the ordering for raw materials ordering that we need to do for manufacturing. So that's been a huge improvement for understanding how to make the actual processes run more smoothly. So we've got all the stuff on hand that we need, and so that's been really good. So yeah, that's I would say that that's the most exciting recent development.
So is that actually a spreadsheet like Microsoft Excel, or is this Airtable based, or?
It's in Google Sheets, so yeah, it's actually a spreadsheet, and so you just put in the like quantities and the part numbers, and then it essentially generates a multi-level bill of materials where if you put the quantity in, then it'll tell you how many feet of material to buy or whatever, like how many widgets you need to make.
Oh, that sounds like a big help for sure.
Yeah,
That I feel like that's a I don't know if it's one of those things where like it's big in my mind and so I see a lot of it, or if it is actually like a big uh, industry wide movement. But like, I see a lot of people in the Insta Machinist community and the Instagram community starting to move in that direction all at the same time, it seems like.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of people are doing stuff, and I think there's a lot of value to just like making making something that works for you, and not there's no basically like there's no right machine or wrong machine. It's just whatever is um, the thing that is going to let your business do the best job, just what you need it to, and nothing more. Like Jay Pearson has a I think a really um, clever approach to buying equipment where it's kind of like stripped down, bare bones, no options that he doesn't need, and it's a really effective way to run a business because then you don't end up with all this extra complexity and cost sitting around in equipment that you don't use. And same with software too. Like if all you need is a spreadsheet, then um, a spreadsheet is a perfectly effective tool, and you don't have to go off and find some subscription software if that's not what you need.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, don't buy a full blown ERP system if you only need a spreadsheet for sure. So did you guys do a big Black Friday sale? Are you recovering from that or recovered from that?
No, we don't. We try not to do too many sales. Like there's you just essentially my own personal view. Maybe this is um, a wrong-headed, but my own personal view is that like if you get into the coupon code sale kind of thing routine with your customers, then it just kind of like um, promotes a mindset in your customers of like a race to the bottom on price, and sort of a commodification of what you're doing. And there's plenty of people that can do similar looking, or let's say like a similar shape of a part to what we're doing, but at a much lower quality and a much lower cost. And so we want to try to differentiate ourselves as much as we can in the market and not be the lowest cost. And it's expensive to run a business, and uh, we need to try to build our sales in other ways besides doing Black Friday sales. So I've tried to avoid it thus far, and so we'll see what happens in the future.
Well, that's good though. That means you're headed into the holidays more or less stress free, or at least not stressed from Black Friday. So that's good.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we had a busy month, but um, yeah, we're like basically it's not a business where we're mandating that people work overtime, and like everything we need to be able to run the business so that it gets done during regular business hours, and not stretch our employees, because we want people to go home and have happy, healthy lives, and um, go have their time away from work, and then when it's time to work again, come back and do what needs to be done.
Totally. Yeah, that's a. I'm sure they value you as a boss having that kind of mindset.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, very cool. And then the question I ask all my guests is, what did you research this week?
So on the business side, uh, I've been trying to learn more about sales and marketing and SEO. Try to get the website e-commerce figured out a little bit better. Like my skill sets are definitely more on the technical manufacturing side and less so on the marketing and sales side. So I've been doing some research on those aspects. And on the non-business side, I got a really good Szechuan cookbook. So I've been reading about Szechuan recipes and Szechuan cuisine and cooking with some peppercorns and chili peppers. So that's good.
Oh, yum. That sounds great.
Yeah, yeah, super good.
That's such an interesting peppercorn and mouthfeel, the kind of numbing spice.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I never knew that was like a it's like a prickly ash berry. It's like the seed from a tree. It's like not a peppercorn like from a pepper plant that we would normally think of like a black pepper.
Oh, I didn't realize that either. Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, how about you? What did you research this week?
So I've been doing a little bit of research into 3D scanners, not
Oh, sweet.
because we need one, but just kind of always wanted one. And I mean, as I've spoke about at length on the podcast, both Brad and I are kind of big gearheads, and so the ability in the future, whenever that may come, to be able to scan and replicate items that are no longer available or that we want to improve would just be super epic. So I've just been doing a little bit of research on that on the side, and then as far as shop new things, we finally got our new compressor and got that installed last Sunday. That has been such a big quality of life improvement. I
Yeah.
can't even express how awesome it is.
What did you end up getting?
We got a 10 horsepower variable drive Eaton screw compressor,
Cool.
and so just coming from a piston compressor is probably, I don't know, 10 decibels less. And because it's variable drive, it really only spools up as much as it needs to maintain pressure, and then it idles for a couple minutes waiting for any load, and then shuts off if it doesn't see any load. Um,
Yeah.
it's still kind of freaking me out every time it comes on because I'm not used to the noise of it.
Right.
So I'll be machining something and I'll hear it come on and think that the machine is doing something weird. But besides that, it's great. It really is so amazing. And I come home. It's only been less than a week now, but I come home less tired. I think just from there's not that percussive beating the air all
Yeah.
day or all night. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's been really nice, and I just started running Op One on our holiday ornaments, and so we're going to be running those throughout the weekend. They're obviously going to be a little late this year, but as long as I get them delivered in early January, I still feel pretty good about them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's
Cool.
been nice. We're slowing down. I've got a week off of my day job starting on Thursday, so tomorrow's my last day, and then I get to spend some time in the shop and spend some time at home and all that fun stuff.
Good deal.
And then you guys are off for a little while too, right?
Yeah, we're off for a couple days for Christmas and a couple days for New Year's. And I've been working remotely for pretty much this whole month.
Oh wow,
So
that's great.
just been popping back to the shop for um, basically a couple days a week, and then working remotely the rest of the time.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. It's a good test of to see how robust the processes are.
Have you noticed anything breaking down in your absence that has kind of informed your processes?
No. I've been pleasantly surprised that we have a super awesome team of guys, and they're super capable. Um, so even the processes that are difficult and have been slightly problematic, they've been able to fix without me being there. So it's probably better for everyone. The less I'm there, it's probably a benefit to everyone, because that means that I'm not doing production stuff that I shouldn't be doing, and I'm focusing hopefully more on more useful things,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like
Definitely.
selling more parts.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then thinking up your next parts, I'm sure.
Right.
So, what does the near future hold for you guys? You talked about hiring a couple more people. Is there more machinery in your future? I mean, it sounds like you might not have room for it, but what's
Yeah,
the?
I think we're pretty much tapped out on the equipment. So yeah, probably like you said, hires, and we do have some new products kind of in the pipeline, but really figuring out how to increase our throughput with the resources that we have. Um, I'd really love to figure out some more um, automated parts finishing solutions, whether that's like a UR robot or um, some other automated, like doing hand finishing is very time consuming and takes a lot of skill. So I really need to figure out some way to streamline that a little bit and take some of the hours out of it. We'll probably end up still doing some. We'll never get rid of it entirely, but I think we could at least automate some of the initial stages of it, such that it could um, increase our throughput quite a bit.
Yeah, well, and you've got already got experience in robots and processes like that, so that kind of sounds like it would fit your maybe. Well, yeah, I mean, it would fit your business model. Keeping a smaller shop, smaller staff, get a robot that can do all the boring stuff for you guys, and keep you guys doing the really high end finishing and all of that.
Yeah, yeah. How about you? What's next for you in the coming year?
So this next year is going to be the year that I transition to Protium full time. So
Sweet man, you'll never look back.
yeah, that's what everybody said. And so yeah, the beginning of the year is going to be kind of prepping both my personal life and the business for that, and getting things in order. We have a accounting software, but I kind of have to go in and figure out payroll and figure out all that stuff and talk to my accountant about all that and just kind of get my ducks in a row. And Brad and I we're going to lay out both a list of things we need to get done for me to be able to go full time. And I really want to, especially after reading the beginning of Traction so far, I want to go through and do the BTO organizer that they have, and really verbalize and solidify our strategies, our goals, all of that stuff, so that we are 100% on the same page.
Let me give you one more book that you should read before you go off on your own, which is called Simple Numbers by Greg Crabtree. And so he talks a lot about like understanding your business and understanding kind of like giving you something to shoot for in terms of um, what your net profit should be as a percent of sales. And maybe most importantly, is his discussion of paying yourself a market wage and owner compensation, and um, how to kind of get out in front of problems if you have a business partner. Um,
Oh, okay.
how to get out in front of like deciding like how much you pay yourselves based on the roles in the company that you have. It's really a really fantastic book, and I wish that I had read it right at the very beginning of starting the business instead of recently.
Well, I just bought it, so I will
Ah,
definitely read
sweet.
it. That the more you said it about it, the more I was like, this really hits home. Like, 6 months ago, I would have been like, I don't know if I'll get anything out of this, but
No,
um,
it's awesome. It's
yeah,
super good.
thankfully, Brad and I have been pretty good about getting out in front of the kind of problems like that. Like I just decided this last weekend, when I'm going to start transitioning away from my day job and all of that. And we started talking about how much I would make and all that, and we were pretty much right on the same page. So, I mean, we still need to finalize a whole lot of things, and I definitely don't think that this is going to be a short road, but I it was encouraging.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. It's I'm interested to hear how it goes, and please let me know if I can be of any help along the way. Be happy to help as much as I can.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I will lean on a lot of the business owners I've talked to, you included, for advice and all of that. It's a little bit scary, but also so exciting. Yeah, I'm just so incredibly excited for the future.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. There's it's very difficult to create any leverage in terms of like creating wealth if you're working for somebody else. Um, and so there's um, yeah, so going out on your own is a huge step to increasing your own amount of freedom and your own ability to control your own destiny. So that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and as one of my friends put it, when I was talking to him about it, he was like, worst case you fail, and you got to find another job, and now you might be on a management track because now you
Right.
run a business. And it's like he's
Yeah.
like, you're young, you don't have kids. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, you can fail a few times and still be all right. I was like, yeah, that's fair. So,
Yeah. Totally.
well, again, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I know I definitely learned a lot, and it gave me a lot to think about as far as hiring and just kind of more the practical nature of running a business. Like, I think that I get stuck sometimes talking about the big, higher ideas of running a business and really the cerebral stuff of it, and not like this is what you actually have to do, and this is how you hire, and this is how you make sure that things are working. So I really appreciate you coming on and giving us that insight.
Yeah, no worries. My pleasure. Hopefully, some of what I rambled on about was useful to somebody. And if anybody has any other questions, feel free to hit me up on the Instagram or email or whatever and have a chat.
Yeah, and to recap, your Pantechnicon design on Instagram as well, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Jacob. And thanks everyone for listening. We will be back next week with Brian Denola of Autodesk. So have a great night.
Cool. Thanks.